There's only one Alasdair plushie, and it's an exclusive, and it's mine.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing?
Me, I'm Alasdair plushie.
That would work.
It really would.
And we already have a hype train. Thank you so much, Ocean. That's really
folks.
sweet of you.
Welcome to the show, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Alasdair. Several inches to my right is the luminous Marguerite.
Is it right?
Yeah, it is right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well done. And we're wearing matching shirts, and this was not intentional, but, you know.
But we are
happened.
coordinating again because, you know, us.
Because stuff.
Yes.
Exactly.
For those of you who are new, hello. You're about to have three things happen. The first is an opening monologue, which is a chance for you to sit down and get comfy and get hydrated and take any drugs you might need and ensure that, you know, Bunny has ball.
Really?
I went there.
Deep cuts.
3,000 words of postmodernism today. It may all be quotes.
And I have to edit it tomorrow.
Yeah, you do. I'm so sorry.
That'll be fun. Ooh, looks like we got a heck of a leg going on as well.
Crumbs.
That'll
Okay.
be fun. Okay, let me see if I close some more windows. Maybe the lag will go away.
Are the magical iPads on airplane mode?
I don't know. I
I'll go
hope
check
not.
real quick. Found.
I've been abandoned. Great.
I'm right here.
Okay, so we are quickly checking some things and some stuffs to make sure that airplane modes are on devices because our connection is, well, it's Wednesday night. What do you want?
Well,
why would Twitch work?
it's
You know, why would Twitch behave? Why on earth would that happen? But quicker. Okay, there you go. All right, there. So maybe. Hopefully that'll be a little more stable.
Hello, welcome to the show.
Okay, it's gonna be one of those kind of nights.
My favorite episode of The West.
No! Okay. Would you please introduce Sarah?
Yes, of
Quick,
course.
save me! I need help! I'm tagging in! I'm calling a friend!
It gives us incredible pleasure to introduce this week's guest, who is the amazing, multi-talented Sarah Gailey, who is one of our oldest, dearest friends, and has produced just this never-ending stream of remarkable fiction and non-fiction. Like award-winning fiction and
Totes
non-fiction.
award-winning.
Totes award-winning. Says it right there on the book cover. Totes award-winning. And most recently, this week, in fact, this very day, they have a comic out called Eat the Rich, the first issue of which I picked up from my local comic shop about 6 hours ago.
Just so we had the prop.
Just so we could do
the
the
thing. It
thing.
already, but yes.
And
Ooh,
it is so
shiny.
fucking good. Oh my god.
Yes. All right. So, without further ado, we're going to introduce Sarah, and Sarah's going to read us the opening monologue.
Okay.
Dun, 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 dun.
Sarah Gailey.
Hi!
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Excited to be here. I'm so excited.
You
I
are.
miss you guys.
I know. It's been Dublin?
Dublin.
Probably.
Yeah, we
there's
we found ourselves doing some math about how the last time we saw lots of people in person, and it was
Sad.
a very worrying amount of time ago.
terrible. I hate that there's a whole continent and an ocean between us. One of my favorite things to do when I get into the same room as Alasdair and Marguerite is stress Alasdair out by telling him how great he is.
I have photos.
And I won't do that now since I'm on your show. And
No,
can
you
kick
should.
me off.
You totally should. You totally should. That's what the revenge is all about. No, seriously. I keep the photo. I'm going to dig it up. I have the photos on my phone. And when he's having a very bad day, I will hold the photos up and point him at them. Just give me a minute. I'll find them. Go ahead.
Because this is not exaggeration. Sarah does not exaggerate. Sarah speaks only the truth. And
carries a big stick.
And carries a big stick and has a fabulous straw. I just noticed also. The last time we met in person was at Worldcon in Dublin in 2019, which is a story that, like the giant rat of Sumatra, the world really doesn't want to hear because it has a giant rat in the middle of it that can't organise parties. Anyway,
And a brewery in Ireland. See, look, see the photo of Sarah informing Alasdair that he is wonderful.
This is not staged. This actually happened.
I totally
This
have.
is just how I speak to this man.
Yes.
It's necessary.
It
Yes.
is necessary. I carry gold star post-it notes so I can write good things that have happened and put them on his wall. That's one of my techniques.
It works.
It's turned into the Alasdair Appreciation Society. I don't mind that, but we're here to talk about Sarah.
Yes, we are. So we are here to talk about
Go.
your stuff. That's good.
Go.
Yes.
Me. I believe that I am doing the opening monologue.
Would you like to do the opening monologue?
Today.
Yes.
I have it printed out because I am a grandpa, and I was afraid to try and use multiple screens and scroll using my weird new trackpad that I don't fully understand, and accidentally shut down the entire internet, the entire world. So I'm reading a piece from the Full Lid called "The Family Business." It is an Alasdair original,
Yep.
and I think that that's better than me complimenting Alasdair aggressively, because imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So please hear all of this as though it is coming out of the mouth of the brilliant and wonderful Alasdair.
Okay.
We're having you back.
Should I read the editor's note?
You can if you'd like. That's
Editor's
me!
Spoilers for the trailer. Oh, so this is in Marguerite's voice, not Alasdair's voice. Spoilers for the trailer, general spoilers for the Ghostbusters franchise, content warning for mild references to inappropriate sexual advances. And now I'm Alasdair again. Most people wanted to be Venkman, the self-help styled hero of the story, a vuncular, funny, center of attention gets the girl, etc. And then we grow up realizing what might have been the height of cool in the 80s was actually a grandstanding sex pest, or who we resonate with now are studious supportive Ray, or overlooked talented Winston, or Egon. Alasdair, have written before about the effect of young Alasdair, who is me in the past, seeing a tall, hyper-articulate, glasses-wearing smart dude on the silver screen. I felt seen, like there were other people like me, even if they were fictional. Much like a few years later, Henry Rollins would teach me it was possible to be both big and clever. Egon, and Ray, okay, I admit it, Alasdair, but taught me it was possible to be clever and kind and weird and cool, which are all things that I do really well all the time because I'm one of the greatest people who's ever lived. That's
possible Sarah's annotating this.
I like this annotated version. I'm going to have to transcribe it. This is good.
I'm reading it word for word. I don't know what you're talking about.
My editor's notes are getting really sneaky. I love it.
And that's why the Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer hit me, Alasdair, like a ton of bricks. I, Alasdair, have been uncharacteristically and openly dubious about Afterlife since it was first announced. Though this one's for fans' initial announcement felt like a rallying cry to the shrill entitlement brigade who wander the internet looking for pop culture artifacts to pick on and take out of context. I mean, the very thought of girls being Ghostbusters in the 2016 Paul Feig-directed reboot, the very thought shrieked man babies around the globe. That reboot, by the way, I watched with a friend of mine who, for a long time, was like, I'm heterosexual. And I was like, I kind of like you too much to believe that, but okay. And during the scene where she licks the ray gun, that friend leaned over to me and said, I think we need to have a conversation later.
Your friend is not alone, and I believe in that realization. Yes.
Yeah. Combined with a witless set of cuts which remove vast swaths of the emotional and narrative throughline, Ghostbusters Answer the Call is unfairly viewed in many circles as a failure. I mean, it's bad enough that the passage of linear time should take place at all. I agree with that one. But for girls to get some of the toys? Bah. But as time's passed, Alasdair, have become cautiously optimistic. Jason Reitman, the director of Afterlife, has gone out of his way to praise both the Feig movie and the doors it opened for the franchise and who can be a Ghostbuster. Spoiler, not just middle-aged men. What brave new world that has such casting choices in it! As important, Afterlife isn't trying to rehash old glories. Instead, there's a chance it's using them the way views of my generate are, and are morally and temporally obligated to, in my view, as the foundation for something new. And in Afterline, that foundation is Dr. Egon Spengler. That's the first thing that got me, Alasdair. And make no mistake, Alasdair, was a snot bubble with language skills by the time I'd finished watching this trailer. Egon, presented in the 80s as the least sociable member of the team, the weird one, the one always most comfortable in his own head, the one who is most likely to be friends with Sarah Gailey, found people. He had a family, and he seemed square that family with the work through the end of his life. This trailer makes it clear he wasn't a great homemaker, but the simple fact he engaged at all is something I, Alasdair, found deeply touching in my big, big heart. Egon found a way to be him and to be in the world, an angry, terrified teenage Alasdair, who's me in the past, would have done anything to find out. But Afterlife isn't finished yet. The trailer flat out states there's something wrong under Egon's elected hometown, that Egon moved there for a reason. Uh-oh. Glimpses of terror dogs and the name Shandor make it pretty clear that this is a return bat with Gozer from the 1984 original. That's so funny, Shandor is my middle name. We don't know how the others fit in yet, but try and tell me that Egon Spengler, aging like Doc Brown with better glasses, standing guard over a town where the world starts to end and making plans for what happens after he's gone doesn't get you misty. I, Alasdair, dare you. I personally dare you. And if you don't, I'll fight you. I'll fight you in the streets. I'll find you, and I'll track you down, and I'll make you do it.
And
That's worse.
no, he'll track you down and cry on your shoulder about it. That's what will happen.
One of those two, definitely.
And then there's Phoebe. I, Alasdair, know nothing about this kid, and I'm rooting for them already. If Afterlife does its job half as well as the trailer suggests, then Phoebe is the answer to the equation that answers the call post. Egon's grandchild, played by McKenna Grace, as brilliant and cautious and self-contained as her grandfather, and as the trailer shows, uniquely equipped to think like him, and also like me, Alasdair, who thinks good thoughts and am smart. A future acknowledging and building on the past. A Ghostbuster by inheritance, but on her own terms, solving the elaborate puzzles her grandfather trusted someone to find. A living embodiment of the future, recontextualizing and solving the events of the past. You know how I, Alasdair, talk a lot about horror being fundamentally hopeful? This is why. And Sarah Gailey, my friend and colleague, agrees with me on this point, although they are not currently writing any part of this piece to make that known. I, Alasdair, just thought that I would include that in here in a parenthetical footnote. There's a lot more to unpack here. What?
I have to find a way to add footnotes to blog posts.
Plus, there's a lot more to unpack here. Phoebe's both a female lead and one who dresses like her multiverse Aunt Holtzman. While I doubt the movie will, and some would argue should, explore the gender identities of the cast, there's at least visual cues that Phoebe may be exploring gender identity and expression, which makes her way cooler than any boring heterosexuals. Given the movie is a canonical sequel to a franchise fronted by Uncle Creepy, it's a bold and welcome choice if they do. Even if they don't, and so help me God, we better not get a without your glasses, you're a girl moment. This is new territory for a series whose original lead spends his first scene manipulating a female student into potentially sleeping with him. Placing Egon's family in what will likely be an exploration of his inadequacies relating to them front and center is a really smart way of updating the franchise, kind of like something that I, Alasdair, would do with my big smart brain. It also opens the door to Egon's other family, and this is the other place where things get emotional. The trailer finishes with everyone's favorite parapsychologist teddy bear picking up an achingly familiar red Bakelite rotary phone from Ray's occult books. If certain toy lines, which do not presently include the female lead of the movie, which is fucking stupid, are to be believed, then Ray, Winston, and Pete will be suiting up or at least dialing in to help the kids out. Narratively, that makes a ton of sense. But it also opens up the franchise to this. Yes, this is all 3 death scenes, and no, you don't have to watch them again. I accidentally just read the caption that was on an image that I deleted from this when I was printing it out. Look, I figured there's at least a 75% chance the CGI ghost Egon Spengler is going to save his granddaughter or friends at a crucial moment in this next third act and share some kind of gentle nerd goodbye with them, and I, Alasdair, am absolutely not going to be okay watching that, because I'm in touch with my emotions, and that's pretty fucking cool of me. Regardless of what you think about the Star Wars sequel trilogy, seeing your heroes die is never easy. Even here, where it's less about heroic sacrifice and more about making your peace with a complicated past, that's a shot to the heart, and I'm not to blame. I Alasdair, really don't want it.
Give love a bad name.
Needed and necessary. I do. I, Alasdair, give love a bad name. Not just for the original team to get that one last hurrah, but for Egon to make peace with his family, and in doing so, allow Phoebe and her brother and mom to step out from his shadow in the movie and the franchise future with them as they go. And my friend Sarah Gailey would say, that sounds like it could open the door to a cool storyline involving a lot of theft, which is, just fun for everybody. Not lost, not the bullshit sub-Pixar Forrest Gumpian manipulation of the audience for the cry equivalent of a dirty burger, but for catharsis. Catharsis for the movie, for the franchise, and for all its fans. And I, Alasdair, really need to make time to yell with my friend Sarah Gailey about what hot trash Forrest Gump is. Fucking Reagan-era propaganda, baby boomer horse shit.
That's a
because
whole nother hour.
Thing. I, Alasdair, argue no franchise is better equipped to explore the inexorable march of time than Ghostbusters. Mortality and spirituality are baked into these movies at a genetic level, and Afterlife has a unique opportunity to be the first franchise to successfully both honor and definitively close the door on its original iteration. This is the world Ghostbusters built, not the world it lived in, and for this to work, the characters have to accept that, and so do the fans, which means that initial declaration may yet come back to bite the production. There's so much that could go wrong. The already glaring absence of prominent POC cast members, the fact that one character is apparently called Podcast?
Yep.
For the youths!
I just felt such crushing despair
Right.
at reading that and knowing exactly why it's in there. And the overtly serious tone for 3, but there's something under the hood here, something that has resonance and power, and that, like a hearse under a tarp in a barn, still runs even after all these years. I desperately hope Afterlife uses its power and potential good. It needs to, because something needs to turn the seemingly endless tide of toxic entitlement around these classic franchises. Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2, the excellent video game that's basically Ghostbusters 3, the real Ghostbusters cartoon, and Answer the Call, For the Love of All That's Holy, please watch the director's cut, are all available now and worth your time. Yes, each and every one of them. Ghostbusters Afterlife is currently scheduled for cinematic release on November 12th in the UK, which I suspect was in the past. And Paul Rudd, the Ageless, is absolutely playing Oscar. I'm calling it now. I, Alasdair, wrote this really good essay. I hope you liked it. I love you and I think you're special. Unless you're a jerk. And then I, Alasdair, probably don't think that you're as special, and I probably don't love you as much. But I do have a big juicy brain and a really cool heart, and I'm tall and give good handshakes. And that's the news.
The End by Jason Mendoza. I love it.
Thank you doesn't even begin to cover it. Just, I pity every guest that follows you now. Because it's just going to be like, all right, here's what you got to equal.
So now I have to find a way to write a full-ed piece, which is nothing but compliments of Alasdair, and then sneak it in as a guest opening monologue, and then just like be off camera and just have him have to sit there and listen to it. Oh yeah, mic drop. Don't forget to drop the mic. That would be another good one. Yeah. Agreed.
Very important.
That was delightful. But Ghostbusters the cartoon was like the best because it was like anyway, that's a whole nother
Lorenzo
hour.
freaking music. Lorenzo music as Venki.
I know. It was much better. It was much less skeevy. The Halloween episode was like the greatest thing ever. I miss that cartoon. That was good.
I remember because I grew up in the 1980s on a small island where fox just washed ashore once every year and we burnt them. At the end of every term at primary school, they basically sat us down and went, "We're sick of you. Here's an hour of something."
Please shut up.
Shoved like a VHS cassette into the Soul video machine for like 5 miles. It was usually the Snowman, the Raymond Briggs. We're walking in the air.
That movie that generationally scarred.
I have friends who were shown When the Wind Blows, which is the Raymond Briggs movie about the nice old couple who die slowly of radiation poisoning in World War III. I dodged that one. Yeah. And then one year it was about 4 episodes of The Real Ghostbusters. And 9-year-old Alasdair watching them play baseball for Winston's soul because otherwise Cthulhu would eat it. What basically just sat there going, this is going to be really important later. I should make notes.
I was like that with every homoerotic scene in Xena Warrior Princess.
So every scene.
There was there was a lot.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, just that moment when you just open up the front of your skull and you're like, I'm gonna let what I'm watching right now just write in the future. What's inside here, and then you seal it in.
There is an outfit you pick up when you complete a chunk of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is very, very clearly a group of designers going, it's the Xena outfit. We can't clear it. I don't care.
Change the
it's
color.
The Xena outfit.
The Xena outfit. We're having it. Yes, exactly.
You don't
I
understand.
admire the dedication.
So, we hear you write things. How's that going?
Oof, terrible. I don't know. Maybe I'll finish a book someday.
Oh, harsh tissue
I
for
have
sure.
so much evidence of you having done exactly that.
You have finished many books, all of them excellent.
And I do believe one of them was on NPR's 100 Best Speculative
announced this very day. Yes, indeed.
Today.
Yes. This is like, I woke up to this news. The Echo Wife, which I have right
Quick!
here.
Pause for prop.
Book that I wrote was on NPR's list of the 50 best science fiction and fantasy books of the past decade today, as voted by people who vote in polls. So people who vote in NPR polls really like my book. And
Yay!
It's so fucking exciting. I'm like over the moon about it.
You're the only problem I have with that poll, that there aren't other books of yours in there. Seriously.
That's true.
I'm just floored and flabbergasted and delighted.
Good.
I am...
Well, you also write really well.
Yeah,
that helps.
you write good. You write real good.
I write often. I write frequently.
and to conclusion, which is, you know, to be honest, half the trick, isn't it?
I mean,
this is something I had to sit down with a friend the other day because I have this like mountain climber's myopia where I can only see the thing that I'm working toward next and I can't see how far I've come.
Yep.
And I sat down with a friend and they were like, you need to be aware that like most people don't write books. And I was like, that can't be true. And they're like, yeah, most people don't write books at all. Most people in their life have never written a book. And it just knocked me over for a little while. And then they were like, when I recovered from that, they were like, and most people who try to write a book don't finish writing the book. And I'm sitting here with like my several years of spreadsheet deadlines behind me going, oh, that's right. I have done a lot of stuff. Which is why I'm so tired.
It's like, this is wonderful and I'm exhausted and I don't want to stop. Because if I stop, then what am I going to be doing? But I should probably not go quite this hard because I'm tired all the time. It's those conversations we start to have, and then the inexorable thought that follows is like, oh crap, am I old now?
Don't. Please don't.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I'm really just, the pace that I write at and the volume that I write at is just my attempt to flee the Reaper. I'm like, I can't go with you, I'm on deadline.
Sarah,
I'm also on deadline.
Yeah, right?
When you write the inevitable writing advice book, please call it Fleeing the Reaper.
Fleeing the Reaper is an excellent title. It is an excellent title. Dongwon, if you're listening, that's a good title. That's a good title.
Lock that one in.
Absolutely.
Dongwon, if you're listening, I have another pitch for you.
Oh, no!
Dongwon's blocking my number right now.
Oh. Just tell Matt. Tell Matt to pitch it for you, and then Dongwon will say yes, and then you'll go, surprise!
Perfect. Bait. I'll pull up my latex Matt Wallace mask that was completely convincing, and then I'll shrink by like 3 feet, which is about how much littler than Matt I am.
Yeah.
And be like, it was me the whole time.
If it wasn't for you darn kids. Yeah, exactly.
I caught his triumphant return to Ditch Diggers earlier today.
Yeah.
And Matt has Captain Pike's haircut from Discovery now.
He does. He kind of does.
God.
And I couldn't shake the image of Matt in the captain's chair on the bridge of the Enterprise. Like, there's a weird space anomaly. Fucking right on.
Go that way. Go poke at it. Let me know how that turns out. I need some apple juice.
So, with the only ship in the sector. Cool. Fair. Do what you gotta do.
That would absolutely be Matt Wallace, the the Starfleet captain, for sure.
When is it dropping on VOD?
Right? There we go. That would be fantastic.
I'm really reassured, strangely, that you use the kind of mountain climbers myopia thing, because the thing which hits me quite regularly, which we talk about an awful lot, is when one of us looks down. And that's how we describe it, where like you are 30 feet in the air and you're like, this is fine, I'm hanging onto this thing. And then you look down and go, I am a monkey attached to a hill, and the hill wants me dead. Oh, fuck. And it's...
Yeah, that's the scary part of stopping is kind of the Roadrunner thing, right? You run off the edge of the cliff and you can keep going as long as
Good heavens, what have I done?
Yeah.
Down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Along those lines, I have a friend who once got a job because he rolled up a character sheet version of Confident Him and role-played that in the interview.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant. I always say you've got to just demonstrate your work persona who like doesn't have hobbies and loves capitalism and wants nothing more than to work 60 hours a week and be underpaid and is like, oh, that's all my favorite things.
Oh, you're making me sad now. You're making me very sad. So on that beautiful segue, should we talk about capitalism? So let's go through some content warnings for this really quick, because capitalism is one of them. So we are going to talk about Eat the Rich, which is the first issue of Sarah's New Boom Studios comic. This conversation is likely to involve discussions of death and dying, horror themes, socio-political themes, including fucking capitalism, violence and swearing.
And maybe eating the rich, as
Well,
a treat.
I mean, it's kind of in the title.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we get to that. So before we get into this, I want to take a step back because this is not your first comic book now, is it?
No, I had the immense privilege of writing 4 issues of Steven Universe, plus a little mini piece in their Fusion Frenzy feature. And I cannot tell you how much fun it was. Of course, I love Steven Universe because I have good taste. And I remember I have been going over like concepts for original work with my editor, and he emailed me and he was like, "Have you ever heard of Steven Universe? Would you have any interest in writing for it?" And I just screamed at the top of my lungs. I was just like, "Of course."
Give me!
Let me do it. I wrote those issues while I was writing the Echo Wife, and the Echo Wife available wherever books are sold.
Nicely done.
The Echo Wife is very dark and fucked up, and very much about like cycles of abuse and learning to understand or refusing to understand the monster within yourself. And it really just like yanked a lot out of me. And so I'd finish writing a chapter of that, and then I'd be like, well, I feel terrible. I feel dead inside. Every part of me is raw and open. How about I have Steven make chicken soup? And then I would go write Steven Universe making chicken soup. And it was just like...
That's so fantastic
Yeah.
that you can line up two emotionally diametrically opposed projects at the same time.
Absolutely.
Because I think an experience like that would give me whiplash. And I would find that the need to emotionally transition between the two almost more exhausting than being in one particular state or the other. So
Yeah.
do you want to talk more about that? Yeah.
I mean, I was already in a pretty bad place. I was going through a divorce of my own, nothing like the divorce in the Echo Wife. I feel the need to say that every time so people don't think my ex-husband is a monster who made a clone of me. As far as I know. And I was
Sorry.
just the non sequitur to camera was so freaking brilliant.
Look down the camera.
I need a freeze frame. I'm wondering how we got here. Yes, that's so gonna happen.
I had moved to Portland. I had to take like I call it my divorce exile year to just like process everything. And I was by myself in a strange city where I hardly knew anybody. There was no sun, and I was in a little space pod of an apartment. And so really like the abyss part of writing the Echo Wife was super accessible. I wrote the first draft in like 6 weeks. I just and the whole thing was out. And I think that the Steven Universe comics were really a lifeline for me during that time. They were a way for me to kind of it was like a little snorkel. Like I just get to take little sips of air instead of drowning 100% of the day.
Oh my gosh.
And it's also a different form, which helps. I think that if I was trying... I actually did this very, very foolish thing early this year, where I was trying to write 2 novels at the same time that are pretty different in tone. I ended up just having to move deadlines because it was not possible. But I think that because I was writing a novel and a comic script is really different form, it almost felt like, okay, I'm finished writing, I'm going to go paint for a little while. It just felt like a totally different practice, which I'm sure helped keep me... I don't want to say sane, that's an exaggeration, but it helped keep me functional.
It helped you find balance.
Yeah. I mean, the thing
Yes.
I find particularly interesting about that issue especially is, from what you say at the time, it very, as you say, it felt like a snorkel, but that isn't just a story. That particular issue is a tool. It's, I learned things about depression and standing next to depression, which I never learned before. And the black dog plays in the bottom of my garden from time to time, but I have relatives where he has a kennel and a doggy Starbucks in the bottom of the garden. Puppuccinos, you know?
Puppuccino. There we go.
And there are just... You deal with an incredibly complicated, difficult, terrifying issue, honestly and openly and kindly. And I understand a lot more about some of the things that happened to me, and I understand how to deal with them if they happen again. And that's down to you. You did a good thing.
That... Oof, you're getting revenge on me for...
Yes!
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Also, it's true.
Also true.
Yeah.
So you mentioned
that was my... Oh,
no, you go.
sorry. I was just saying that was my approach to all 4 of these issues. I was like, because they're written for children. They have to be written at a level that's accessible to, like, 4th through 6th graders. And I was like, I don't know what they're interested in. I don't know what they think about. You know, I didn't really have a very usual childhood, so I couldn't just go back and be like, what was I thinking about? And I was talking to my agent, Dongwon, about it. And Dongwon was like, what do you wish someone had been telling you back then? So that would change the way that you grow as a person. And so I decided to work with, you know, making space for feelings that can't really be fixed, and taking periods of rest instead of just trying to help all the time. And then I also did some more light, like, here's a chicken soup recipe that you can make with a grown-up, and confidence is better than perfection. Having a good time matters more than getting it right. And I decided to try and work with those themes to be like, okay, here's what matters to me that no one told me when I was a kid. And that just turned out to be the right approach. But it just cracks my heart open that it also resonates with people I care about.
Absolutely, it does.
And that's a lot of what Steven Universe, I think, is about as a show, and why people just are... It is a fixation for so many people, is that it is that space, it is that communication, it's that kind of lifeline back to, you know, what could you say to a younger self? I mean, it's a very, for example, on TikTok right now, there's this very common theme of, like, people doing mashup videos of talking to them younger selves and asking questions and, you know, talking about how their life as it is now is not where they thought it would be when they were that period of time. And that's a lot of what I think you were aiming for with things like this. And I've got a segue. Quick, watch. Here we go. I'm going to get us back on track. 35 minutes into this interview, we'll actually talk about the book you're here for. Watch me do this. If this comic is about you talking to a younger self, then this comic is about... This could be called the art of microaggression, as far as I am concerned. And there are passages in this comic where I am almost positive these are things that have been said to you or in a situation that you have been in and have heard other people say to people like you. And I know that because there's at least one line in here where I'm like, I have been in that fucking cocktail party and heard that fucking line said. And... so yeah, let's talk about that.
So this comic isn't a hit piece on every rich person I've ever known and worked with before.
That's because it's only the first issue. You asked more. Give it time. Come on, Sarah, pace yourself.
Come on, Sarah, pace yourself. It's not a successful instruction anyone has ever given me. Yeah, so Eat the Rich is a little pitchy time. It's the story of Joey Dorsey, who is a law student who's going home with her boyfriend for the summer to meet his family in the wealthy vacation community that they stay in during the summer. I always call it the Slamptons in my beat sheets because I hadn't come up with the name for it yet. Just think very wealthy getaway community for beachy rich types in the summer. And Joey isn't from that world. She grew up fine, but poor, and got scholarships to go to the same school as her wealthy boyfriend, and nannied all through undergrad and into law school to help make ends meet and keep herself afloat. She's not someone who would really necessarily think of herself as impoverished, but she's lived in a completely different world from the people who she's meeting this summer. Mm-hmm. I personally have spent quite a bit of time around very wealthy people. I have cared for them in medical capacities. I have cleaned their homes. I have been the person stocking snacks in the kitchen at the tech company that pays them 5 times as much as I get paid. And I, when I was having these interactions, I wasn't like taking notes in my head, like someday I'm going to write a piece about how absurd you people are. But there's some things that people say to you that you just suddenly realize that they've lived a completely different life from you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of the boss I had who sat me and a coworker down, and we were 2 people at this tech company who weren't working in a tech design capacity, and we were 2 of the lowest paid people at the company. And this boss said, I'm going to give you 2 some advice. And we were like, okay, great. And she said, never pay less than $500 for a pair of jeans. It might be tempting, but it's just really worth putting the investment in. And that, like, just hit me like a ton of bricks, because I was like, you are aware of how much money we make, and the scale is so different in your life from in my life that it doesn't occur to you that that would be a ridiculous thing to say to me.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something that I think about a lot is the way that American high society is constructed. America does not have royals, and American culture is really married to this idea that everyone is equal and everyone can make it, and you can, climb the ladder if you work hard. That's all you got to do.
And then
we really love that narrative.
And then there's the flip side of it, isn't it? Exactly.
Yeah. And American high society was constructed really intentionally to find a way to still have that narrative be true, but to construct isolation for very wealthy people. Of course, very wealthy white people, right? These are WASPs. These are Ivy Leaguers. Ivy League schools were started so that those people's children could go to college together and form connections to support each other in business only.
Yeah. And intermarry. Yeah.
All of the little rules that they follow, like don't wear white after Labor Day, they come up with reasons why these are really important. But the reality is that they're just rules that you have to know in order to fit in. And if you don't know the rules, then you've marked yourself as an outsider. That's the experience that I wanted the reader to have in Eat the Rich. That's the experience Joey has. She shows up, and there's all these rules that everybody kind of just knows, and nobody will tell you. I kind of also modeled this because I do very much think that the tech industry is our nouveau riche high society.
It is. It's certainly certainly in this century. I mean, before that it was the industrialists, and now it's absolutely the technocrats. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I worked at this tech company, it was the first like kind of solid job that I'd ever had. I had done like a lot of like small business stuff and a lot of hustling and a lot of grinding and some temp work. And then I got this job left in this tech company. I was like, oh my God, it's utopia. And I said, what am I supposed to wear? And they said, oh, you just wear whatever makes you comfortable. And I was like, but like, how do people dress there?
Yeah.
And they were like, we don't set stock by that. And of course, I ended up getting like a year's worth of horrible undermining comments from my boss because I wasn't dressing right, because I just didn't know what we were supposed to do. And nobody would tell you because they were like, no, we don't care about that. Never wear that skirt again. That color is not good for our branding. And it's the exact same thing. There's all these rules that you have to navigate. And because the people who are telling you that these rules are important have money and power, and because they have absolute confidence that the rules are actually important and that the rules will get you someplace if you just know them all, it's so easy to get swept into trying to impress these people, trying to fit into them, trying to be one of them. Because you're like, something must be wrong with me. I just don't understand all these things that these other people intuitively grasp about how we're supposed to act and how we're supposed to look. So I just got to work on myself more, which of course stops you from really being able to engage with the enormous problems that those same people are causing and bringing to the table into culture
I
and society.
distinctly remember spending 2 years of law school agonizing over the right kind of bag that I needed to have because, I mean, one, international. So I've gone from California, where we all have cars, and so you just throw your backpack in the car because you have a vehicle with you to hold things, to London, which is a culture where you carry everything you own on your back all day long, apparently, and the weather changes constantly. Oh, but you never put it over your shoulder. That would be rude. You have to forearm curl this giant bag full of all of your life's possessions all day long. And just, ask Alasdair, I got so stressed out about it for like the first couple of years because I was starting to do interviewing for placements. And I was like, I'm gonna have the wrong bag.
I remember that. I remember that from job interviewing. I remember that from coming to work. I remember the eyeliner situation where the C-level executives, of course, they were never called C-level executives because we're a flat organization.
Yeah, of course.
At this company, they were starting to like talk a lot about makeup and like they were all getting really interested in it. And so one day, I showed up wearing this dark blue glitter eyeliner that I had that I really loved. And my boss pulled me aside and was like, "That's so camp." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, I love it. It's just so camp. Wow. You really thought that was appropriate for the workplace?" And I was like, "Yes, I don't know." Because nobody tells, and of course, you know, this applies differently to different people across genders. I think that these rules really come down hard on people who have not been traditionally welcome in workplaces like this. Women and trans and non-binary people have to navigate a whole other level of you have to present the right way.
Yeah.
I actually
infuriating.
I actually got the exact photographic negative of that. The worst job I ever fucking had was with as a technical writer for a tech firm in York, and I was one of 3 male staff members. And the 5'2", 90-pound soaking wet distance runner CEO fucking hated me on site because he knew I could fold him up and drop him like yesterday's bran muffin. And the only other guys were his partner, who was ex-army and who he clearly wanted to be, and just this astonishingly cool goth drag queen who just adopted me on site.
Thank God.
And it was my first real experience of this is a very hostile workplace for me, which was rare for a white dude and very useful. Because the morning after I had my knee partially broken by someone who didn't understand the most basic judo throw in the world, like a fucking idiot, I hobble into work, drag myself up the stairs, and the first thing this guy says as he's introducing a new hire is, "And this is Alasdair, who has no manner of physical fitness at all."
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gone 6 weeks later. It's probably 6 weeks more than I should have been. But your point about how if you're not traditionally welcome in those spaces, yes.
And it's a test, isn't it? Those cultural elements, those what's the right drink to order, what's the right bag to carry, it is 100% gatekeeping at every conceivable level. It's not just can you learn these and navigate those rules, because we all know of cultural elements where groups that did not grow up that way later gain access to wealth and then start to adopt some of those cultural behaviors and form their own, and then the rules change, right? Because that's the whole technique. It's a test of, did you grow up like I did? And so they're never going to be welcoming, and they change constantly. And you got the tone right, Sarah, is what I'm saying. This has reminded me more of law school than anything I have read recently.
One of the things which
I'm so sorry to take you back there.
No, but it's important because, you know, when you're living in that experience, you're right. You very much either you double down and you invest. And I think that's what Joey is doing in this first issue is, you know, this is the boyfriend meeting the family for the first time. This is the world that she has bent over backwards and self-sacrificed to enter. And so she is not just like socially invested, but like personally invested. This is what she sees as her path to success. And so she is bending herself in knots to learn this and to navigate it and to, you know, to be able to do okay. But at the same time, you just hope that she's going to reach this point where she's like, good heavens, what have I done?
and building on that as well, and I'm being very careful about spoilers, I love that one of her rocks in this is Alasdair. And I love how there are things you drop in, and there are things which by the end of the issue are heavily implied, which suggests that Alasdair is not a rock for anybody other than him. And
I have predictions, put it this way. I have predictions about what's going to happen here. There's a sequence early on, this is the closest I'll come to a spoiler, where he has a panic attack. And by the end of the issue, when I read it, I was really impressed because it was very well written and very convincing. And by the end of the issue, I was pretty certain that the reason he said he'd had the panic attack was not the reason he'd said out loud. And that's good stuff. That's how you do fucking horror. My God. Ugh.
I love that you drew that connection. You are absolutely right. I mean, the thing is that Alasdair as a character is never lying, right? He's never trying to deceive Joey here. There's just things that it doesn't occur to him to say, and things that you don't say. I'm going to make this sound like this is just an autobiographical comic. In my late teens and early 20s, I dated someone from a very wealthy family. And the family was first, his parents had immigrated here. I always mix up which is first generation and second generation, and I don't want to get it wrong. So his parents were immigrants, and as a result, there wasn't the old money American wealth culture in that family. So on that level, it was more easy for me to, figure out the rules. But there was also this thing where there was a lot of stuff that he didn't warn me about within that dynamic of this family. And when I asked later, like, why didn't you give me a heads up about any of this? Part of the answer is because he was a complete asshole. And part of the answer is because he was like, we don't talk about it. And I was like, right, but I don't know that you don't talk about it unless you tell me. And he was like, how am I supposed to tell you we don't talk about it? And Alasdair has a lot of that baked into his character. He's the one I'm going to be. Waters his whole life.
He's the one I'm going to be the most interested to follow his development, or if there is any development, as kind of the events of the first comic advance, because that's a character that can really go either way. It's like, are you opening your eyes or are you doubling down? And I think that's it's interesting that both Alasdair and Joey are kind of going through the same journey, but they are making we don't know if they will make different decisions or if they will make a common or a same decision yet. But how they get to that decision based on their entirely different approaches to being at that decision is what I'm really interested in seeing more about as we go on.
And saying nothing.
I know! It's very frustrating!
And there is this really nuanced, careful thing which you absolutely nail. And there's no way to say this without it sounding pejorative. And just in case my parents are watching, hi, I love you. Family makes us stupid in a very specific way for the exact thing that you talked about, the thing that we don't talk about it. Every biological family has shorthand, psychological and behavioral. And I have never seen that used as a tool of unease before. And I've never seen it used in a way that makes everyone uneasy. Because that party is miserable in a fascinating way. No one's happy. No one's having a good time.
And yet they're all there.
And
they know they have to be there. That whole social awkwardness of expectation and showing willing and being seen is palpable, really. And it's done just in It's not even done in dialogue. It's done in the, and that's one of the advantages, I think, of this being in a comic format, is it's done with crowd shots and visual cues about, you know, Joey being dressed differently or alone in the middle of a crowd or different elements like that.
Real quick, just to get across. Kiwi, if you're not feeling too good, do please step out. It's okay.
Yeah.
Honestly. And feel better, okay?
Yeah. I like your point about family and blind spots, because I think, well, we all have that, don't we? We all grow up with our own groups and we know what's acceptable to us. I mean, this is a horrible analogy, but it's the one that just immediately came to mind, and that was that gigantic Twitter thread a couple of years ago about the poop knife. Do you remember that? And the whole cultural thing?
I didn't actively remember it until when you were like, that whole Twitter thread from a couple years ago. I was like, where's this going? And then you said poop knife, and it just all came flooding back to me at once.
But it's,
yes. Yeah. Yes.
But it's that concept of you don't know what your family does is weird until somebody else sees it or comments on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think of this very much in terms of Thanksgiving, which is an American holiday I detest on many levels. And one of those levels is that, like, most people I know don't like Thanksgiving food. And most people I know have in their family a Thanksgiving recipe that has to be on the table every year.
The expectation.
For my family, it's my grandmother's stuffing. She was French, and she made this like stuffing with rice and chicken liver and wine-soaked grapes. And it was my job to make it for a long time. And finally, one year, everyone in my family said, "None of us like eating this. Why do we make it every year? Should we stop?" But we still made it every year until I said, you know, I'm not doing Thanksgiving anymore. I cannot stomach this holiday. We made it every year. And we all knew that no one was going to eat it. We all knew that at the end of the night we would be trying to sneak leftover Tupperwares into each other's bags so that we didn't have to take it home. And it was just this thing where, and it's not a stuffing that I've ever encountered anywhere else.
I've never heard of that. Yeah.
Wine-soaked grapes just sounds like someone lost it bet.
No, it sounds like some asshole of a French chef in a manor house 200 years ago was a dick to his understudy and made them do this. And then some other asshole wrote it down. That's what that sounds
grapes. I'll fix that tiny wagon.
It's not wine-soaked grape. It's wine-soaked raisins.
So God, that's worse.
It's like taking beef jerky and soaking it in blood, and you're like, you could have just had meat. I don't know. Anyway, the point is, I couldn't agree with you more about this weird thing in families, and it's something that, you know, I'm really obnoxious about applying queer praxis to every part of my life. So I'm constantly picking up things and being like, do I do this just because it's expected, or do I do it because it's the thing that I actually should be doing? And because of that, those family dynamics where you just are falling into what you've always done make me really uncomfortable when I view them from the outside. And then when I'm doing them from the inside, of course it feels perfectly comfortable, because it's like, well, this is just what you do.
Yep.
You know, this is just how it is. Why would you question it? Why would you think to explain it to someone?
Why would you think what happens at the end of this comic wouldn't happen at the end of a pier party on the beach, right?
It's what we've always done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good God. Yeah, exactly. Oof.
All the way through my childhood, my parents went on holiday to York. And they loved it there, and I did for a long time. I went to university there. I liked it so much. I got my master's degree there as well. And I now have about a 72-hour tolerance for the city. And it is a very sharp boundary.
Oh, yeah.
I'm good for about 72 hours. And then it's the fucking moment in Speed where the bus goes over 50 miles an hour. And my stomach drops, and the panic hits, and suddenly I'm like, I would very much like to leave now. Thank you.
I love you. That hits about hour 68, and by the time we get to hour 72 is when you're like shaking the car door. Like,
let me in!
Yes, exactly.
I'll push if I have to, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to note who those traditions comfort and who they chafe. I personally am like really allergic to tradition. I also have a pretty strict time limit. The amount of time that I can spend doing something just because it's what's been done, like, I don't know, it gets shorter every year I'm alive. And then I know that there are some people who are really comforted by tradition, by knowing that they're doing something the way it's always been done, by knowing that they don't have to question what's happening. I have no idea what that feels like, but I know that there are people out there who like it.
Yeah.
And to me, they're really scary. And so I was like, well, how about I just draw a version of them that's scary, and that's the comic. Which, by the way, I did not illustrate this comic. I keep on wanting to find ways to bring up Pius Bach, the incredible illustrator.
Yeah, the art's
who did
really
the pencils for this, and
very good.
Roman Titov, who did the colors. I apologize, Roman. I've only ever seen your name written down. I hope that that I is long. Stunning art, really beautiful. They both did so much with my totally unhinged scripts. So, if you're out there and listening to this, thank you.
I really enjoy the art a lot. I think the color work in particular, and like I said, just some of the composition of the crowd scenes conveys a lot of meaning. And like the scene on the beach, I'm just not even going to get into. I'm like, whoa, okay.
It really is one of the things that jumps out about it. I mean, I talk about comics an awful lot because
you word good.
I word good and other stuff good. And I talk a lot about how comics is a team sport, and you have an incredible team here.
It's a good team, yeah, absolutely.
You know,
my team is just amazing.
How many issues are planned currently?
5. So you've got 1 of 5. It is a closed arc. After the 5th one, that's the end of the story. I believe that we're going to be releasing a collected, like a trade.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll all be out by the end of this year. So you will have issue 5 by the end of 2021.
Nice.
Perfect. Bloodstone Christmas present.
Huh?
Perfect. Bloodstone Christmas present.
Wow. Ooh, conversation starter. Hey, Mom! Read this, and then let's talk about that stuffing. God, right? Wow.
I'm so fortunate to have gotten to write this. My original editor is no longer with Boom Studios, but gave me this opportunity. I wrote up the pitch. I pitched it initially as CW's Revenge meets Riverdale, but with people who eat people. And
perfect.
He was like, yeah, do it.
What was your description of it?
Shirley Jackson's The Lottery filtered through the really good seasons of the OC.
That's why when you said that to me, it just hit me right here, because I was like, that's exactly what I wanted to write. I love primetime soaps. I love the kind of like not quite trashy, but also not quite quality storylines that come up. And I love fish out of water. Like, you're dropped into society and there's something dark afoot, which if you haven't watched the CW's Revenge, you absolutely must. It's delicious. And getting to do that in comic form was just a dream come true.
That's fantastic. Are you... So you write in a lot of different media.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to keep doing everything you can get your hands on? Do you have other comic aspirations? Are you going to start writing audio dramas next?
Okay. Vis-a-vis other comics, the future contains many possibilities, and some of them we aren't allowed to talk about.
I see. Excellent.
Yes.
And in terms of other media, I don't know. I keep on saying, like, I can't... this is like a little like how the sausage gets made, right? brand dilution is something that I'm trying to avoid in general, which means that I want people to associate my name with a particular product so that when they hear the name Sarah Gailey, they're like, I want to spend money on that product, because then I get to keep on buying my dog Tinkerbell the expensive dog food that she needs so that her liver doesn't explode or whatever.
You have the best dog, by the way. Just the best dog.
Yeah,
she's the best dog.
She's high quality. I'll tell her you said so. She got a bath yesterday because she was rancid, and she has still not forgiven me. Oh no. I also washed all her. She has like blankets that she likes to snuggle up in because she's an old grandma, and I washed all her stinky blankets while she was drying off from the bath. So I am like, I'm
persona non grata.
Yeah. But anyway, the goal of like having a good focused brand is that when people hear Sarah Gailey, they'll think of one thing. And so I keep on saying I need to not do anything new and different. Like I need to not branch out anymore, because if I branch out more, that will dilute the brand. People will start thinking of two things when they hear my name, or three things.
Would you teach him how to do that while you're at it?
No, because I'm no fucking good at it. I'm a total failure, because I keep going, oh, I'll just do this project on the side for fun. No one's going to buy it. No one's going to pay attention to it. It'll just be a little treat for me. And then I get really into it, and then it does better than it's supposed to. So, like, I didn't think anyone was going to know about this comic. I mean, and this is no shade to Boom's marketing and publicity stuff. I'm not a known comics writer. I kind of assumed that I was going to be, you know, sort of an extra little thing that they throw into the goodie bag as you're leaving the party to get rid of it. So like someone else has to deal with it. And instead it's like a real comic, and people are reading it and talking about it. And now I'm really excited about writing comics, and my poor beleaguered agent, who has blocked my number by now and also is keeping an eye out for me in disguise as Matt Wallace, is like, and what's next? And
well, someone's just said in the chat, look, Neil Gaiman does everything, and he's Neil Gaiman. Stephen King does everything, and he's Stephen King. You can do everything and be you.
Yes.
It's not stopping you either. Let's be honest.
You know.
Well, me and Alasdair would definitely enable each other.
Well, okay, fine. So you go on the collaboration list. What do you guys want to do?
Goes on the collaboration list again.
True.
Yeah.
I think we've had this conversation before, haven't we? Okay.
The thing that I'm currently fighting the pull for is screenwriting. I've had a couple of conversations as things that I work on are in film development, and people always ask, like, do you want to write the screenplay? And I'm always like, no, I'm not good at that. I don't know how to do it. I don't want to do it. Which is what I said about writing novels, what I said about writing young adult, what I said about writing comics, what I said about writing a newsletter, what I said about writing nonfiction.
So find something small, or like if you're... We have a good friend. Her name is Margaret Dunlop. She's a Hollywood screenwriter and animation writer, and we talk to her on a regular basis. And like the number one piece of advice Margaret has for authors who think they might want to try screenwriting is get an option to write an episode, but don't write the pilot. You need a professional to write the pilot so that the series gets picked up. But give yourself the option to have an episode or two, because then you're not committed to the success or failure of the entire project. Is dependent on you learning a new skill, but you have the opportunity to practice a new skill, knowing whether or not the thing will be successful. So get option for a TV show, Sarah, and agree to write an episode of your own TV show.
You can play with the toy, but you can play with the toy within a set parameter.
And someone else has already bought and paid for the toy?
Yeah.
So, you know.
So Can I just point out that I was saying I really need to not take on this.
I know. Yeah, I know. We're awful. We're horrible.
You're like, here's advice on how to do it.
Right? We are such enablers. We know it. We know it.
In the U.S. in the 90s, we had this. I'm Marguerite. I think you probably experienced this pretty directly, but you know, there's people all over the place who haven't experienced the nightmare realm that is the United States growing up. We had this program called DARE.
Oh yes.
Drug and alcohol resistance education, where a fucking cop would come to your school
and scare the shit out of you.
Teach you about all the drugs. They would be like, this shit will get you so fucked up, and it's cheap and readily available everywhere, and no one will know if you do it, and it'll feel so good. Don't. And that feels exactly like this conversation with you about screenwriting. Those cops always would warn you, like, look out, because a drug dealer will track you down and force you to smoke marijuana, and
your life will be over.
Yeah. And this is absolutely you being that drug dealer that those cops warned me about, being like, just try it.
Come on, it's just an episode. It can just be one little screenwriting project.
Don't you want to be cool?
Oh, I mean, you could write an audio drama first, which is screenwriting skills.
There you go. See?
Dawan is gonna hunt you down if I contact them after this and say, I want to do screenwriting and audio dramas too.
That's okay.
It's fine. It's fine.
I'll take that blame.
It would be fun. Maybe in the future. Maybe after I get through the stack this high of deadlines that I have right now that I'm avoiding.
So what is coming out next that you can tell us about? Oh boy. What can I tell you about?
For so long, Eat the Rich has been my answer. It's been like, here's the next thing I'm allowed to talk about. What have we announced? We haven't announced the title yet of my next novel for adults, but I can tell you that it is horror. It is domestic. It is... I'm supposed to call it like a gothic thriller or something because I don't know. I don't understand genres.
Because it's Halloween.
People always say like... People are always like, oh, you deconstructed the genre in this book. And I'm like, no, I just wrote the wrong genre by accident. So this book that I have coming out next year, I believe in the summer, is... how much am I allowed to say? Not very much.
Is a book.
It's a book. It's going to be shaped like a rectangle. It's a story that's about the horror of going home. Just like we've been talking about a lot here, it can be disarming and unmooring to be around the people who installed your brain for you while you were growing up. And this is a story that's very much about how frightening it can be to return to a home that shaped you in ways you spent your whole life trying to resist.
Oof.
That's all I'll say.
That sounds fantastic.
For sharp-eyed viewers who want to like play Encyclopedia Brown, it's actually already on Goodreads. I don't know how it got on there. We haven't announced it yet. We're not talking about it. We don't have a cover, but it is among the somehow 45 Goodread titles that I have.
It's almost like you're prolific and brilliant, isn't it?
I'm totally doing this.
It's almost like I have a dark compulsion. But don't say the title out loud. Don't nobody talk about it, because my publisher will get mad at me.
Okay, I
want them to pay me to write books in the future.
Cool. We're looking and carefully not saying anything.
We're not saying anything, but I might go like poking it.
You have also
you can DM me after this.
You have also reminded me, if indeed I needed reminding, of my favourite coping mechanism for NDA projects, which is I explain at great length what my favourite episode of The West Wing is, and it's one where Josh is not allowed to talk about a thing. And the first couple of times I did this, I did the full thing. And it's now just down to, my favourite episode of The West Wing is Celestial Navigation.
And we all know what he's doing, so.
It's infuriating, especially because you spend so much time with a project, and like all I want to do is talk about it. And I'm not supposed to. And I'm also
But it would be really cool.
Yeah. So I'm like, I can't tell you anything, but...
Yeah, exactly. This is the one thing that Dongwon would probably, like, log into the chat and just be like, no! Yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
Here's what I can say about it.
Okay.
It is the close of my unofficial, unlikable female protagonist trilogy. So, my first adult novel...
Loading, please wait.
Magic for Liars.
Yes.
Features a complicated female protagonist who a lot of people, when they talk about her, refer to her as like morally gray and like complex. And The Echo Wife, which is my second adult novel, features a female protagonist who a lot of people, when they talk about her as an unlikable and irredeemable bitch, which really warms the cockles of my heart. And this third one features a female protagonist who I suspect a lot of people will refer to when they discuss her as an outright fucking monster. At least if I did my job right.
Fantastic. Also, fun fact about Magic for Liars. When you view that book from space, it actually spells out J.K. Rowling can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, there's not so much subtext in that book as 10-foot tall text. Yes.
Yeah, I've met people who write using subtext and they're cowards. I have this thing where, I mean, Harry Potter really built my career for me. My first kind of hit nonfiction series of essays was an exploration of the female protagonists of Harry Potter and using them as a lens to try and drag people into anti-fascist activism. And then, Magic for Liars has a lot of grounding and reference to Harry Potter in it. But also J.K. Rowling can go fuck herself. And I don't really want my name and brand to be affiliated with Harry Potter, but I am okay with my name and brand being affiliated with J.K. Rowling can go fuck herself.
Yeah.
It's
it's very much what the book reads like. It reads like you processing something which was tremendously important to you and which did a tremendous amount of good, and that you now realize has been rendered toxic by its fucking idiot creator. And going, and now that's done, and shoving it in a box and putting it away.
Or literally shoving it in a book and putting it away.
It's an extraordinarily liberating experience to read, so I can only imagine what it was like to write.
The more I wrote it, actually, because I started out being like, oh, there's some things that I would love to address that I think that, in the magical school setting, a lot of the more popular magical school books don't really address. And the more I wrote it, I did, again, this obnoxious queer praxis thing that I do where I just pick every piece up and say, is this necessary? And I kept picking pieces up of your classic magical school story and going, is this necessary? And going, wait, that's really fucked up and broken. All right, well, let's look at the rest of it. And I pick something else up and be like, that's fucked up and broken too. And eventually...
You're just, this is all fucked up and broken!
This is all fucked up and broken. Why would you do it like this? And the answer was, because she has bad opinions and ideas.
Because appropriation is a thing.
Yes.
I like the little innocent to camera thing. That was a good one. That was particularly good. We've been talking over an hour, and this has been terribly delightful. I'm going to ask the audience real quick if they have any questions. Mods, if you would maybe highlight them for us, that would be great. Do you have any other... I mean, we probably haven't even talked about all of your conversation topics, but...
Oh, no, we actually covered pretty much everything.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, background.
You know what we're like, Sarah. You get us in the same place, and we'll just... How long were we in that pub? Just for hours and hours and hours. It was delightful.
Yeah, I want to say 4 hours.
It was great. It was probably one of the best parts. One of the best parts of the weekend, unfortunately. So,
because it was the one which had all the money on the walls,
mm-hmm.
and the bartender who was a little like, who are you? And people with cash. Cool.
He was like, all right, I'll tolerate you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what do you mean you're not drinking? What are you doing here? I'm like, well, unfortunately, all your restaurants are closed because this is Ireland and it's a Sunday. So that's what we're doing here, right?
It was like, I will just give you money for a bathroom and a place to sit.
Right.
Yes, sir, I would like to rent a stool.
That's an excellent question. Goodreads has Magic for Liars listed as LGBT. Which letters and how prominent is a question being asked?
Ooh. Okay, so this is there's two answers to this question. One of the answers to this question is that every fucking thing I write, even if it was like the heterosexual's guide to picking up women in bars, gets tagged as LGBT because I'm queer and non-binary, and people really beautifully love to highlight creator identity when they're talking about pieces of fiction. But for instance, The Echo Wife is tagged as LGBTQ, and it's like, that's a little bit of a stretch. Mm. It also does great stuff for me in terms of marketing, because every time that fucking J.K. Rowling goes on some transphobic crusade, people are like, let's highlight trans and non-binary authors, and I end up being one of them, which is very nice. I really do appreciate it. But that's a blanket answer for all my books. That said, there is a lot of queer representation in Magic for Liars.
Available now. What books are sold?
I have one of your pins, I think.
Yes, you do.
Oh, hell yeah. God, those pins were cool.
I don't know if this is on my board. It may be in my backup stash, but I think I had one of your pins at one point. Yeah.
Toxic. So I don't want to tell you like which characters are what, because some of that is plot relevant. But there is a prominently featured lesbian couple. The main character, Ivy Gamble, is queer. It's not super prominent in her discussions of herself, but she's queer. She dates a bisexual man throughout the book. And the kids, because the teens at the school are characters with their own plot line, are kind of all kinds of queer. I don't want to make a list because I know that I'll end up leaving one out.
That's good.
Because I have a terrible memory and I wrote this like 6 books ago. But you've just got a lot of very casual queer representation on the page. My general blanket rule is that I don't write heterosexual characters unless I tell you they're heterosexual. And I know that doesn't necessarily translate to like representation, right? It's a very fucking J.K. Rowling, very Marvel move to say, oh, that character, even though it never came up, was bisexual the whole time. But as a blanket rule, you'll always know when one of my characters is heterosexual because they die early.
Okay, so your heterosexual characters are Caden from my Mass Effect playthroughs. Good to know.
Hey, Caden.
Go straight to the grave.
Go stand next to this nuclear weapon. Why? No reason.
Oh,
bye.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I love that. I haven't seen any other questions in the chat. Kill your straights, as someone has just said. So good. There we go. Well done.
Are the straights okay? No, because Sarah is killing them.
Sarah's killing them all. Sarah Gailey's kill straights. I love it. I love it.
I just find them boring. I just find them dull. I'm like, why am I going to write about that? I don't. Heterosexuality? What are we, children? Like, grow up. Enough already. I'm just not interested.
Yeah, I adore you, Sarah. Everybody in the chat's like, can't ask questions, we're too busy laughing, which is fine. That sounds fine. The great
straight pride parade in the sky.
Exactly. There we go.
Oh no.
Oh god, the fan art from that would be hilarious.
Good grief.
I love it. Oh.
You can go to your gender reveal in Hades. Just don't shove it in my face.
Hilarious. I've been laughing so much my cheeks hurt. This is fantastic.
Did you see the gender reveal where that was staged so the balloon popped blue? No, green rather. Green sickly smoke. And unholy music started playing. They'd rigged it so they started weeping blood and screaming.
There we go. You know, if you're going to do it right.
You don't have to rig anything. You take me to a gender reveal party, it's a matter of time
it's
before
just gonna happen.
Blood and screaming. It's just a natural consequence.
Exactly.
Oh, been in half an hour, Sarah's weeping blood. Okay.
Well, Alistair's frantically yelling at the car door. Let me in! We gotta go! We can't stay here! This is backcountry! Yes, exactly. Oh, fabulous. This has been amazing, Sarah. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. It's been too long.
Obviously you need to write more things, because when you do, we can have you back to talk about them.
Of course. Yeah,
yes.
That'll be my motivation. I'll have one of those do it for her collages from The Simpsons, but it'll be both of your faces.
Yes, there you go.
With speech bubbles, like, just write one episode, Sarah, and what could an audio drama hurt? And tell Don Juan it's their fault. You know?
Cool people do screenwriting.
Just try one. What could go wrong?
Right? Dare to write an audio drama.
So much for having me on here. This was so much fun. What a great way to celebrate this comic coming out. I
I really
so
am
glad
looking
you
forward to
happened.
reading the rest of this. I have so many theories about where this
And
is
the
going to go.
horrible, horrible shit that is going to happen to these horrible people. It's going to be great.
I mean, with a title like this, I can say that cannibalism was the anthropological subject I studied the most in college. It's fascinating to me, so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
Yes.
Could be anything. Who knows?
It could be absolute. Really?
Yeah, I went there.
Ugh, weirdo.
It was a cheap get, you know.
Fantastic. Okay, everybody in the chat, we are gonna say goodnight to Sarah, and go and take a little tiny break, and then we will be back for some shenanigans. So this is a chance for you to get up and take a stretch,
Yes, indeed.
and refill your drinks, and make sure you've fed the pets and yourselves and medications as needed, and we will chat back with you in a few minutes. Bye.
Thank you for having me.
So sherbet's,
Welcome back.
sherbet's like sorbet, but I think it has dairy in it. I think that's the difference. Like sorbet is just frozen fruit juice, where sherbet like usually is like orange, like creamsicles. You know, when you get that cup of ice cream that's half vanilla ice cream and half peach, orange. You don't have those?
How long have you lived on this island?
Have we never had?
The cultural allergy to joy this country has, I thought, was quite well documented at this point.
Well, you guys are talking about peach sorbet or peach sherbet, and I'm like, oh,
Yes.
man.
Yes.
Yeah, I think sherbet has dairy in it. I think
You
that's
see,
the
now
distinction.
what I really want is one of those pineapple ice cream floats from Disneyland.
Oh, pineapple ice cream from the Tiki Room in Disneyland
Yes.
is the greatest.
Tiki room where the parrots will one day gain sentience and lead a murderous rampage across the world with the two X-Wings from Galaxy's Edge and Spidey swinging under them. And I've said too much. Welcome back. Hi everyone.
Hi, everybody. Isn't Sarah a delight? We haven't had a chance to hang out with them in quite a while. Sarah's one of the friends that we mostly see at genre
Conventions.
conventions.
Don't happen right
Which
now.
haven't happened in a
Yeah.
couple of years. So we haven't had any chance to hang out, but they are delightful. And they write really good books and lots of different books. I haven't read Echo Wife yet because the subject matter is kind of one of those things where it's like, it's like Handmaid's Tale. Really need a run-up
Yes.
in order to be able to engage with that particular subject matter, and I haven't had that particular mindset for a while, but I trust Sarah's writing, so.
Exactly. And note, Sarah and their partner Ryan and Zalia were the best part of a really quite astonishingly shitty 36 hours in Dublin.
Oh, but that's a whole...
But that's a whole other episode, which we might do at the end of the year. Who knows?
Oh, exactly. All right, so we have an absolutely delightful long-form shenanigan. This is by Shiny Opals here in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Opals.
It's called Non-Conjugal Visits, and there are some content warnings, so let me just mention those. Content warnings for death and dying, horror themes, blackmail, imprisonment, prison, and swearing. And I believe this is a standalone Season 4 canonical divergence. And if I remember correctly, Shiny wrote this before Magnus 200.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it will deviate from Magnus a little bit. But we're going to do the thing where Alasdair gets to read the voices and I'll read the rest of this.
Basically, what if Magnus had more kissing in it?
Okay.
Yes.
We'll take him. What if Magnus had more kissing in it? Yeah, that's... Yeah,
You have to do the hands. What if?
What if?
What if?
Okay. Alrighty.
What if Star Wars, but samurais?
Well, that's gonna happen!
I know!
Have you guys seen... What's it called?
Star Wars Visions.
Star Wars Visions, where they've basically given Star Wars property to 7 different animation studios, and they've written and animated their own Star Wars stories, and I just can't wait. It looks so good. It's gonna be fantastic.
Exactly.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep. Let's tag team this mother.
Non-Conjugal Visits by Shiny Opals.
Ah, Martin, you're still here. Excellent.
Martin bit back a question about where else would he be. The alternative was his equally miserable flat. And if he was there, he'd have to pay for the heating.
Hello, Peter.
He said in his best approximation of a customer service voice.
What can I help you with?
The main thing he missed about the archives, apart from the obvious, was that he hadn't had to be polite to anyone there, since everyone had started dying horribly.
Nothing too onerous.
Assured Peter in the confident tones of a man who was definitely lying.
There's not a 16th fear entity emerging, is there?
Asked Martin.
What? No, of course not.
Said Peter, frowning.
I need you to go and visit Elias and deliver a message from me.
Said Martin. This sounded worse, actually.
If you could let him know that, despite my best efforts, Lady Cordelia has perished.
Said Peter. Said Martin.
And that since he doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon, I finished his shortbread before it got stale. But...
Said Martin. Peter faded into static fog.
What?
Said Martin. He turned back to his desk. The tape recorder wasn't playing, so he addressed the stapler instead.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Yeah. 16th fear would be better.
He said. The stapler looked like it might be judging him. The prison visiting room was dank and miserable. It was not nearly as dank and miserable as the archives, so Martin was starting to think Elias was getting off lightly.
Hello, Martin. To what do I owe the pleasure?
Said Elias, smiling with more amusement than actual warmth.
Dickhead.
Thought Martin as loudly as he could.
Peter said he's killed someone called Lady Cordelia.
He said at last.
Oh, and he ate your shortbread.
Elias sighed deeply.
If you could tell Peter,
he began through gritted teeth,
that I was quite clear about how often Lady Cordelia needed watering.
Martin stared at him for a few seconds.
It's that he's killed a plant.
Elias rolled his eyes.
If he'd killed a person, he'd hardly be apologetic about it. Now, would he? I don't think he actually apologised,
said Martin.
He sent you in person rather than allowing me to learn of this via my usual methods.
Elias said.
Really, Martin? You've still got a lot to learn about the lonely. And do tell him, if he eats any more of my biscuits, I shall replace them all with peanut butter cookies when I get out.
Martin stared at Elias, uncomprehending.
He particularly dislikes peanut butter,
Elias explained smugly.
Now, please instruct him to put the rest of my food in the freezer, and it will keep perfectly well. I hardly plan to be in here for that long, after all. Right,
said Martin.
Great.
It was 3 blissful weeks of almost peace, aside from the general sense of encroaching doom and the fact that the only company he had was his stapler and occasional visits from his evil boss, before Peter asked him to visit Elias again.
There's something clanging in the pipes in the penthouse on Acaster Street, you see.
Peter explained.
I need you to ask him to know what it is and how to fix it.
Martin squinted up at Peter. He glanced at the stapler to check they'd heard right.
Can't you hire a plumber?
He asked. Peter gave him an extremely reproachful look.
Plumbers cost a lot of money, Martin.
Martin considered pointing out that his salary for the time off work and the expenses he'd claimed for the oyster fare to the prison also cost money. Unfortunately, he suspected that a plumber would probably cost more.
Maybe your flat's haunted,
he suggested. Peter looked even more reproachful, which, well, mean. More reproachful.
Which, well, mean.
Mean. There we go. Not that Martin's sense of humor was doing particularly well these days, but Peter could at least pretend he was funny.
Fine, okay, I'll go ask Elias what's backed up your pipes,
he said, and then immediately regretted his choice of phrasing. Fortunately, Peter didn't seem to notice.
Oh, and here's some shortbread for him,
said Peter. He gave Martin a 10.
I made it,
he added proudly. Martin stared at him.
You bake? Everyone needs a hobby, Martin,
said Peter.
Perhaps you should try it yourself. You're looking a bit peaky, honestly. It's quite good. You don't need anyone else around. You just need a well-equipped kitchen.
Martin's studio flat had a kitchen that had been described by an estate agent as spacious, which meant he could only open one cupboard at a time, because otherwise the doors would hit the other cupboards.
Oh, God, I've lived in that house.
Tell me about it. The fact that it had more than one cupboard in London on his salary had felt like a luxury at the time.
I'll definitely think about it,
he said, instead thinking about what would happen if he chucked a stapler at Peter's head.
Tell Peter,
said Elias without preamble,
that the shortbread he stole was from Harrods, and that I am not interested in his cooking experiments. I want like replaced with like. Can I keep it then? Asked
Martin, who had been stuck on a delayed underground train for what felt like hours and was feeling hungry. Elias pursed his lips.
No.
He said, and extended his hand for the tin of shortbread.
Worth a try?
Thought Martin as he handed it over. He wondered how abhorrent and evil he would have to get before someone would bake for him.
Oh, and the plumbing thing?
He asked. Elias sighed deeply.
The downstairs neighbour has recently become involved with the hunt,
he said.
Unfortunately, he's not yet learned how to dispose of his victims. Honestly, that building used to attract a better class of tenant.
Martin shook his head, trying to make sure he'd heard that right.
Wait, is the hunt not posh enough for you? Frankly, serving the powers used to mean something a bit more than flushing body parts down a toilet.
Elias sneered.
Something more, like using your eldritch knowledge to avoid hiring a plumber?
Asked Martin. Elias narrowed his eyes.
Fucking hell, touchy. Alright, fine, I'll tell Peter to chuck the bloke downstairs and the lonely problem solved.
Elias raised his eyebrows.
Eager, aren't we, Martin?
A smirk spreading across his face.
I was merely going to suggest raising rents to a suitable level to keep out the less desirable tenants.
Martin scowled. He didn't think being a terrible landlord was so much better than feeding a serial killer to an eldritch power that Elias got to judge him about it.
I hope he's poisoned your shortbread.
Was what he said.
He hasn't,
said Elias, smugly. The next time, Peter summoned Martin to his office.
I've a couple of things I could use your help with, Martin,
he said.
Great,
said Martin, trying to at least sound like he meant it.
I'm trying to update the Institute website,
said Peter, which, despite Martin's months of indoctrination into dulling his feelings by way of eldritch evil, sent chills down his spine.
Great,
he said again, with even more enthusiasm. He was wasted in this job. He could have won an Oscar if he'd gone into acting.
I thought it would be better for our coffers to allow members of the public to make donations to the Institute,
said Peter.
However, when I try to link the main page to this new how to donate page that I've created, it doesn't work.
Martin took a deep breath. This was fine. He could do this.
Oh, God. All right, then. Do you want to show me what you're doing?
He asked. He wasn't sure he wanted to see what Peter was doing. He was going to have to change the password to stop Peter from doing things, actually. Peter turned back to his computer with all the confidence of a man who could, and did, make all of his problems disappear. Martin watched as he confidently selected the text, which read, "Click here to donate now!" Then as he watched, Peter, extremely confidently, found the formatting toolbar. Then with continued confidence, Peter selected the option to underline the text, and then changed its color to blue. He then attempted to click on it before he turned back to Martin expectantly.
So, you see, it doesn't actually link to the page at all.
He explained.
Yeah, it doesn't, does it?
Said Martin. He considered his options, one of which surely had to be murder. Unfortunately, there were no blunt objects within range.
This is quite a difficult website change, Peter. How about you save what you've done and leave it for me to figure out the rest? Excellent. I knew I could count on you.
Beat.
How do I save?
Martin leaned over, took Peter's mouse, and did it for him. And then he logged Peter out of the website with extreme prejudice.
If that's what you wanted, then I'll just... Oh, no, hold on. If that's what you wanted, then I'll just...
He began.
Oh, one more thing before you go,
said Peter. Martin felt his stomach sink.
Yes, Peter.
Peter picked up a cardboard folder.
I have an event this weekend,
he said, looking as though there was a bad smell.
Please ask Elias which of these outfits would be best suited.
The folder turned out to contain 3 glossy, high-quality photos of Peter in what looked to Martin to be an identical captain's greatcoat.
I am dying.
Elias, however, scrutinized them for an excruciating 10 minutes. The only sound was the ticking of the clock in the corner of the visitor's room.
They're the same outfit!
Burst out Martin at last.
Don't be ridiculous, Martin,
said Elias with a deep sniff.
I know you're working with the lonely these days, but you still have eyes, do you not? This one.
He held up one photograph.
Would clearly be quite unsuitable for such a formal occasion. Meanwhile, this one.
He held up a second, identical photograph.
Is perfect. It really brings out the colour of his eyes. The third would be acceptable, but not quite such a good choice. The cut doesn't do his figure nearly quite so much justice. The cut doesn't what?
Said Martin. Elias was looking at the photographs again. He looked interested in what he was looking at. Extremely interested. Things began to click into place.
Oh, Christ,
said Martin.
That's a very judgmental and old-fashioned attitude, Martin.
Elias said coolly. Martin decided that yelling,
I'm gay, you dickhead!
meant Elias would win, and tried to think calming thoughts. Calming thoughts like throwing a brick at Elias's head, or dancing on Peter's grave. By the time Martin got back to the Institute, he could no longer remember which photograph Elias had picked out, so he just grabbed one at random. They were, after all, completely identical. The next time Peter asked him to visit Elias, Martin was reading a book about poisons found in the natural world. Peter had told him he needed a hobby, after all.
I'm having some issues with the staff, you see.
Peter explained.
Not the Institute, my personal staff. And Elias can help from jail?
Asked Martin dubiously.
They're all getting a bit friendly,
said Peter, wrinkling his nose.
Morale is getting too high. I've taken all of the usual measures, but it hasn't helped nearly as much as it should have done. Feels like there's something going on. There must be some linchpin of happiness. I need Elias to sniff them out. Right,
said Martin.
Fantastic, sounds great. Can't you just fire them all? It's extremely hard to hire and train a good staff, Martin,
said Peter, frowning down at him.
It's far better to only rid yourself of one or two troublemakers and make sure the rest fall into line.
His smile was warm, but his eyes were not.
Perhaps this'll help you with managing Institute business. Perhaps,
said Martin, biting back what he actually thought. He couldn't help but think he knew who was the Institute's troublemakers, after all. Elias regarded Martin with folded arms.
Would it,
he demanded,
be too much to ask for a husband who occasionally inquires as to my well-being? I'm sorry, what? I'm the one who's in prison, after all, continued
Elias, as though Martin hadn't spoken.
But instead it's, oh, Elias, tell me this. Elias, what's broken with that? Elias, I'm sorry.
You've made yourself laugh.
Elias, I've stolen your food. Not a word about how I'm doing.
Said Martin.
What?
Yeah, that's you.
For once in his life, perhaps Peter should try expressing an interest in someone other than himself. But do try to keep up, Martin,
said Elias, rolling his eyes.
You're married.
He managed to stumble.
To each other? At present.
Elias said icily.
However, if Peter wishes to remain thus, he ought to put in a trifle more effort. You did marry an avatar of the lonely, though, right?
Said Martin.
Like, you must have capital K known what you were getting into. Very droll, Martin,
said Elias flatly.
And you may tell my husband that he can sort out his own staffing issues. Yeah, fine, I might as well,
said Martin. He paused.
So, how long have you been married? Which marriage? Which, what? Oh, God, I've changed my mind. I do not want to know.
Peter took the news silently and then disappeared back to the lonely in a cloud of sulky static, which certainly improved Martin's day. It did mean he had to get back to reading statements about the extinction, the fear of which seeped into his bones and left him unable to concentrate, except for thinking about the great change in the world after. This was, however, still better than talking to Peter or Elias. He also caught sight of John from a distance, moping about the canteen, and felt a brief thrill of forbidden romance before tapping that down and hurrying back to hide in his office. All in all, a good day. When Peter found him again a week later, he was engaged in a spirited debate with his stapler about whether he could get away with buying a gun in central London.
Ah, Martin, you're still here. Good. I need your assistance,
said Peter.
Well, I am your assistant after all,
said Martin.
What? Oh! Oh, very clever wordplay there, Martin. I like it.
Martin stared at him. He was not paid enough for this.
Anyway, I've decided I need to send Elias a gift to make sure he knows he's appreciated.
Peter held out his phone. On the screen of his phone was a photograph. The photograph was a picture of a slightly distorted view of his computer screen, which was open to a webpage containing an edible arrangement. There were, as best Martin could see, heart-shaped pieces of melon. There were bits of pineapple in the shape of flowers. There were also some strawberries, some of which were even covered with chocolate, so it wasn't a total loss. The price tag was, if Martin was reading it correctly, £15.99.
Do you think he'll like it?
Asked Peter.
That looks great. Fantastic,
said Peter.
Please purchase it and take it to him.
Martin suppressed a laugh.
Right. Yeah, of course,
he said.
Can you just send me the URL and I'll do that?
Peter blinked down at him.
What's an Earl?
Said Martin.
You've got the photograph, Martin,
said Peter, frowning, waving his phone.
What more do you need?
It only took 7 hours to track down that particular edible arrangement Peter wanted him to buy. Despite that, Martin couldn't help but think that this was probably a more valuable use of his time than spending 3 days interviewing old women named Angela after being explicitly told to do so by John, only to be yelled at by John for spending 3 days interviewing old women named Angela. But at least John yelling at him had been hot. Peter disappearing into fog didn't even have that going for it. Still, if Martin hadn't already had his suspicions, this 7 hours of his life would probably have been the moment where he'd start to wonder if the extinction was actually a threat.
I want a divorce,
said Elias. Martin considered first Elias, and then the edible arrangement that he'd been forced to carry on the tube. He'd got a lot of stares right up until he'd slipped into the lonely to hide from them.
I think he's trying,
offered Martin. He really didn't want to go back to Peter with nothing more than divorce papers to sign, even if they both deserved it. Elias narrowed his eyes.
Please, a £10 gift basket. $15.99 actually,
said Martin.
Plus delivery, plus me oyster fare. That man owns a shipping conglomerate and is a slumlord many times over.
Elias huffed.
The least he could do is pay for a singing telegram.
He then narrowed his eyes at Martin in suspicion.
Nope,
said Martin with some urgency.
Good,
said Elias firmly.
I mean, it's quite hard to be romantic in the lonely.
Martin winced, wishing this was all a bit less true. Elias sniffed, irritated.
Didn't used to be like this,
he said.
He used to be all about the big grand gestures. He once delivered no less than 30 prospective institute employees right to my doorstep. Oh, wow,
said Martin, hoping he sounded suitably impressed rather than extremely nauseous.
I mean, if it helps, he's forcing me to visit you in jail. That's torturing someone.
Elias tilted his head slightly.
I suppose that is a little romantic.
He conceded.
But it's very low effort compared to my Peter of old. He said what?
Demanded Peter. Martin shut his eyes. He wondered if this was it, if it was finally about to die. He probably should be more worried. Mostly he was thinking about the fact that being thrown into the lonely over failing to prevent a divorce was a rubbish reason to be offed by an eldritch power.
What did you say?
Complained Peter. Martin risked opening one eye minutely. There was a definite sulkiness to Peter's tone. He said.
I did my best.
He actually had. That was the worst of it. Peter made a grumbling noise under his breath.
I suppose you probably did.
He conceded.
It's not really your fault, Martin.
Martin let out a breath and opened his second eye.
After all,
Continued Peter.
I know romantic endeavours are hardly your specialty.
Martin scowled.
Wait, hang on, I'm not... That's...
Peter fixed an eye on him genially.
Of the two of us, who is actually married to a servant of the Ceaseless Watcher, Martin?
He said, patiently. Martin opened his mouth. Martin closed his mouth.
Exactly,
said Peter.
Now, listen, between you and me, Martin, I think you make yourself a little too available to your romantic prospects. You need to play a bit more hard to get, as I believe the phrase goes. Have you considered vanishing into the Forsaken for 10 or more years? That does wonders in invigorating a relationship, I always find.
Martin made a noise that he hoped came across as interested agreement rather than strangled fury.
Now, if you'll excuse me,
Continued Peter.
I need to think about my next steps.
Static rose and Peter vanished. Martin turned to his stapler.
Do you think blunt force trauma would do it?
He asked. The stapler did not respond.
No, probably would be a bit squeamish, you're right. Rat poison, yeah. Rat poison in his tea. I mean, I could probably expense it and he wouldn't notice.
Silence continued.
Bit of a waste of good tea, though.
Continued Martin. He reached for another statement.
I've got it,
said Peter, appearing out of nowhere at a sudden buzz of static.
Oh!
Martin
Right.
gulped and nearly dropped his tea.
Yeah. Hi, Peter. How are you? We're going to romance Elias. Who is we?
Managed Martin.
What we need,
said Peter,
is to write him some love poetry. I don't see how we need to do that.
began Martin.
I think we established...
I just saw Chanel say, "Oh, Jesus wept."
Hold on.
Oh my god.
Alright, hold on. Lion face. Lemon face.
Oh my god.
Okay. I think we established that I'm not very good at romance, remember? I'm very, very bad at romance. Can't romance anyone. I basically am guaranteed to get you divorced. Come on, Martin,
said Peter, frowning.
I know you do all of this fancy poetry stuff in your spare time. You must already have something dedicated to an eyeball monster I could use. This might come as a surprise to you, Peter,
said Martin, his voice coming out extremely high-pitched.
but the whole eyeball monster thing isn't actually part of the appeal. You know, for me.
Peter looked rather taken aback.
Isn't it?
He said. He wrinkled his nose.
What on earth is then? Oh, we are not having this conversation.
Said Martin.
We are not having this conversation. We are not having this conversation.
At some point, he had started rocking backwards and forwards slightly.
Really, Martin, you're being extremely melodramatic.
Said Peter, sounding disappointed.
Do calm down. I need you to write me a love poem and take it to Elias.
Oh, God.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, everyone, in advance. Please, just let's see if we can get him through this.
There's a gap in the road, and we need to make the bus accelerate to jump over it, and we are not going to make it. Oh, fuck. There was an old man with a boat, and all he knew was to keep it afloat. But to his great surprise, oh God, he met a man filled with eyes, and now all he knew was to dote.
Elias regarded Martin with an entirely silent face.
My goodness.
He said at last.
How very moving.
Martin watched him stonily.
Naturally, I'll have to call off the divorce.
Said Elias.
Naturally.
Echoed Martin.
Really quite reminiscent of Keats at his best, I think.
Said Elias.
Oh, I thought it was right. Okay, you know what?
Said Martin, getting to his feet.
Fuck you.
He could definitely hear Elias snickering as the prison guards politely escorted him out.
I probably couldn't shock Peter in the lonely myself. Could I?
He asked his stapler that evening.
Not strong enough. Plus, he'd get help.
He puffed out a breath and twiddled a pen.
He's already saying, I've got the eye and the lonely, but what good is that? Am I meant to just look him to death? The eye is shit.
The stapler was definitely judging him. Part of being a good assistant, Martin had always felt, was making sure your boss ate actual food. He'd done it for John and enjoyed it, especially when it meant going out to cafes together and awkwardly talking about everything and nothing. For Peter, it meant popping out to buy him a sandwich every now and again, fortunately without any expectation of actual conversation. A good assistant always got the right order and picked it up on time. A bad assistant, or a good one who was at the very end of his tether and was feeling extremely petty, might make mistakes.
So sorry, Peter.
He said breezily, pushing open Peter's office door to let himself in.
Must have got the sandwiches mixed up and given you mine by mistake. Hope you don't dislike peanut butter.
Peter Lucas was lying on his desk, face down, looking extremely dead. A half-eaten sandwich in one hand.
Oh.
Said Martin.
Oh. Fuck.
He raised his hands to his head.
Elias, you said you didn't like it. You didn't say he was allergic.
Things began to move in rather a blur after that.
Martin! Oh.
Said Martin. He pulled at the hem of his prison uniform, suddenly self-conscious. They told him he'd had a visitor. They might have had the decency to tell him his visitor was John. He could have had a meltdown in his cell about his clothes and his hair looking terrible.
Hi.
He sat down opposite John and tried to work out what to do with his face. He wanted to smile. He wanted to cry. John looked great. Well, no, that was a lie. John looked like a disaster who hadn't slept in a week. But Martin was extremely into it.
Martin, for Christ's sake,
said John, leaning forward over the table.
The next time you commit a murder, call me. I have a coffin to a sphere dimension that I mostly use for filing, but I can definitely hide a body in there.
He looked extremely earnest. It was very distracting. Said Martin eloquently, before his brain caught up with him.
Wait, hang on. Next time. Murder? It was an accident.
John blinked owlishly at him. It was stupidly cute.
Oh, come on! Elias said Peter didn't like peanut butter.
Martin.
How was I supposed to know he meant deathly allergic? I had an actual plan, you know, sort of. I just wanted him to have a miserable lunch one day. Fucking hell. Well, your browser history did come out in the trial. Pointed
out John, unreasonably reasonable.
Look, just because a man Googles how to murder his boss, it doesn't have to mean anything. We all need hobbies.
John looked like he was trying to suppress a smile.
Very well, Martin.
He said, his voice fond in a way that Martin didn't know what to do with, making Martin's face feel very warm.
Next time you commit manslaughter, call me, and we'll shove the body in the buried and stop you taking the fall. I'm really hoping there's not going to be a next time,
said Martin sulkily.
There's still Elias.
Sorry, pointed out John. He sounded a bit hopeful. Martin wasn't sure what to do with that.
I guess. Let me know if you get any of his allergies beamed into your brain,
he said.
He and I are neighbours now, anyway. Oh, Lord, yes,
said John.
Has he been causing trouble? No, actually,
said Martin.
He's having a proper sulk. I'm starting to think he didn't want me to off his husband. His what? You heard me. Good Lord,
mumbled John. Martin nodded.
I suppose it's one way to get donations,
he said, and was rewarded by a snort from John. Martin preened. At least some people could appreciate a mildly amusing joke.
How's work?
He asked at last.
All right, actually,
said John.
Without a boss, the department heads have taken over. I was banned from talking to donors by popular vote on day 2. Artifact storage has burned every Lightner in our possession. The archival assistants are on strike. The research team has split into factions. It's a bit chaotic, but rather less miserable than it had been. Shame I'm missing it,
said Martin, quirking his lips slightly.
Well, at least it's only 2 years,
said John.
Yeah, that's quite a low sentence, given I, got done for murder, despite not actually deserving that. I don't remember hiring a barrister, but that guy was pretty good. Don't even think that he sent a bill.
John dropped his eyes and shifted on his chair, his cheeks darkening.
John, is it my fault if the legal system is incredibly corrupt?
John huffed.
Your judge was responsible for a hit and run last year. Your barrister agreed to work pro bono in exchange for my not mentioning to anyone certain transactions at his firm. The arresting officer has a cocaine problem. John, unfortunately the prosecutor was squeaky clean and tried to have me arrested, but attempted supernatural blackmail doesn't leave much evidence, especially not when the police are all trying to cover up their own crimes. Well,
said Martin. He felt his whip wobble as something big and unwieldy inside of him tried to burst outwards and envelop them both.
Thanks.
John was looking at his own hands.
Of course.
He mumbled. He tugged the sleeve of his jumper in the silence for a moment before he spoke again.
I brought you some things.
Something in Martin's stomach leapt.
Keep it together,
he told himself.
Oh!
He said in a totally normal and not at all high-pitched tone of voice. What John extracted was a few cardboard files, however.
Seeing as how you're probably still tethered to the Institute, I thought I'd rather bring you some statements, in case you get sick,
he said. Martin's stomach sank.
Great. That's great, John. Thanks. Looking forward to it.
John, however, had stuck his hand back in his bag and pulled out a flat envelope.
I also got everyone to sign a card.
Martin blinked.
You did what? Sorry?
John shifted again.
Well, I wasn't really. I just thought Daisy, Basira, and Melanie might like to, but then so did everyone else. He wasn't exactly the most popular boss.
Nonplussed, Martin reached out to accept the bright red envelope and slid it open. The front of the card read, "We miss you," which was a nice sentiment. The inside of the card was filled with dozens of notes from what looked like everyone in the Institute, saying things like, "Nice one, Martin. Took one for the team, buddy," and "Fuck that guy, kill him twice."
If no one else is hearing that last one in Tim's voice.
Yeah, exactly.
I realised a bit too late I perhaps should have vetted the messages,
said John, whose own message very appropriately read, "To Martin, I hope you're keeping well. John, XXX." Martin told himself he wasn't going to fixate on the XXX, except everyone knew that 3 X's meant more than 1 X, didn't they? Surely even John knew that. 1 X was for everyday messages. 3 X's were for communicating something much more meaningful. There was no way that hadn't been on purpose, wasn't there? Not that Martin was going to fixate, he decided. Plus his eyes were getting a bit wet, and reading the whole thing, he hadn't really thought that he'd been missed at all, Martin, actually.
Thanks, John.
he said, meaning it this time. John was either polite enough or awkward enough, not to mention the way Martin's voice was wobbling.
Oh, and one last thing.
Said John, reaching back into his bag to pull out.
That's not shortbread, is it?
Said Martin, mouse speaking before his brain could stop, as he took in the biscuit tin John was holding. John's forehead creased.
No, I'm afraid. Do you want shortbread? No, God, no, definitely not. Well, good.
Said John, looking quite reasonably confused.
I made you some brownies.
Martin blinked.
What?
His voice came out embarrassingly squeaky.
They might not be very good.
Said John in a rush.
They look a bit dense in the middle. I was using Mary Berry's secret recipe, the one she doesn't tell the BBC. But I'm not actually that good at baking yet. Oh, God, please don't cry, Martin. You don't have to eat the brownies. I'm sorry, Martin. I'm fine.
Said Martin automatically. John's hand almost patted his in a helpless, flapping way. Helpless, flapping way. Not quite daring to touch.
Sorry.
Said John again.
No, it's good. I just didn't expect. Sorry. Thank you.
He wiped his eyes again, and John gave a watery smile. John smiled back, and it was lovely.
Look, I know it's really not much, Martin. Is there anything else I can get for you? Oh, no, I don't expect... It's fine. Honestly, I'm doing all right.
He gave an attempt at a little laugh.
I don't think you can do much about the springs in my mattress from out there.
John pulled out a notebook and pen from his bag and wrote down "new mattress" at the top of a fresh sheet.
John? I'm visiting the warden now.
Said John, almost brightly.
He also has a few secrets. How do you think Elias gets so much special treatment? Now, is there anything else?
Martin stared at John for a few seconds. This felt faintly unethical. But then so did feeding a man peanut butter sandwich and sending him to an early grave, so he probably shouldn't judge.
The food's a bit rubbish,
he said at last.
Elias definitely gets his own catering service. I never see him at dinner.
John nodded and made a note. Martin tried not to feel too warmed by it.
John,
He broke off and swallowed, and suddenly found himself the focus of John's gaze again, which was always a bit unnerving. He shut his eyes and forced himself to be brave.
Will you visit again? Oh,
said John, just the faintest exhale of air. Martin risked a glance to see John giving him an extremely wobbly smile.
If you like, of course. I wasn't sure if you'd, but yes, I will. Right,
said Martin. He swallowed and tried not to cry again.
Cool. Do you have any dietary requirements I should know about?
Asked John abruptly.
No. Why? I was going to try Victoria Sponge next.
Said John.
Unless you have any requests. No, that's fine.
Said Martin.
Good.
Said John.
Now, I'm afraid I do need to go and blackmail the warden before his shift finishes. I'll be able to stay for a bit longer tomorrow, although I might arrive later, as the cake will need time to cool. If you can think of anything you want me to buy or bring for you, let me know then. Thanks,
said Martin. He was still feeling a bit confused by this whole interaction. He was pretty sure he and John had left off at awkward friends with some unrequited love going on, and then he'd moped around a lot when John had died, and then he'd repeatedly told John to shove off. He wasn't sure how they'd gotten from there to John bringing him baked goods in prison, possibly on a daily basis. Then John reached across the table extremely slowly and put one hand on top of Martin's for about half a second. It was still enough for Martin's brain to short-circuit.
Hi,
he squeaked.
See you tomorrow, Martin,
said John in that extremely soft voice of his as he stood up.
Look after yourself.
It took some time before Martin recovered enough to collect his card and reached for his tin of brownies. The prison guards were keeping a weirdly respectful distance, so possibly John's campaign of blackmail had already begun. Opening the tin, he realized he had about 40 brownies to eat in the next 24 hours.
Jesus Christ, John,
he mumbled. He was, he reflected, about to become the most popular bloke on the cell block, and he was not going to be sharing with Elias. Maybe getting done for murder, wouldn't turn out to be quite so bad after all.
Oh my god, Opals.
That's so
Oh my
adorable! Oh, they killed Peter with a peanut butter sandwich. Oh my gosh.
I am a sucker for pushed to the edge profanity, and that reminiscent of Keats. You know what? Fuck you is absolutely perfect.
Oh, bravo, Opals, bravo. That was absolutely delightful. And I do believe there's another one of yours we haven't read yet. I found it recently. Let's see. He died alone, just like he wanted, with a peanut butter sandwich in his office.
Well, you've got the photo. What else do you need?
Oh my god, right.
Martin, I'm doing an internet.
Oh, well, see, there's this one here from January called Love in the Modern Workplace, or How to Fill Out Form 54A, a specific romantic liaison date between two co-workers with one department. Yeah, it's a form. There are forms. I'm totally going to read the one with forms. Oh, delightful. Absolutely.
That was so
delightful.
good. That was so freaking good.
Thank you very much, Opals. We appreciate it. That's like 11,000 words. We might have to break it up then. We'll take a look.
Do it as a serial.
Or like that's the stream. We're
Yes.
just gonna do a 12,000 word fanfic.
Brace yourselves for fluff.
We might need costumes.
I would do that.
Like dramatic presentation.
Yes. Title cards.
There would be title
cards!
Ooh! Okay, we need to stop. Okay, we're gonna turn it into. Wait a minute. I don't suppose Tim's in this one.
Seriously, I heard, fuck that guy. Kill him twice.
Right. Ah ha 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 ha. Tim is in this. Right. I have some ideas. Only briefly. You might need to write one that's a little more Tim-centric for me. Then I got some ideas, but we'll leave you to we'll leave you to stew, shall we? Right.
Yes.
Where
hello.
are we next?
Massive thanks to.
Where are we? What are we doing?
Can't stop here. Bad country. Massive thanks to Opals for our shenanigans. Massive thanks to the amazing Sarah Gailey for one of the most in-depth and fastest interviews we've ever done. That did not feel like an hour and 15. That felt like...
It was closer to an hour and a half.
That felt like 10 minutes.
Well,
it was great.
Keep in mind the last person we talked to was Ben, and we went over 2 hours with
Yes.
them, so...
Also fantastic. And was it Ocean who did the incredible...
Yeah!
Spud Radish Me
Oh,
up top.
Yes, so for those of you who do not join us on Sunday mornings, we do a casual gaming stream on Sunday mornings. We're currently playing Haven, where we have finally discovered the screen loading character who is this gigantic daikon radish adorable spud thing that
He lopes across the landscape.
he's very,
it's adorable.
very happy and makes happy noises, and then he falls asleep. He's adorable. And Ocean has done one Spud Alasdair has done some wonderful fan art of that for us, which is great.
Thank you.
That's where you can find us on Sunday mornings. On Friday, our BFA and Hugo Award nominated pop culture newsletter, The Full Lid, comes out. You can subscribe to that on Alasdair's website.
Yes, indeed.
I have an Alasdair plush sheet. There's only one. It's all mine. Sorry. It keeps me warm. That's Friday. Sunday will be more Haven, and then next week we will probably finish episode 1 of Scarlet Hollow, which is getting spoopy.
And you said episode 2 is already out.
And episode 2 is already available, but I'll have to
so we can
it.
just step straight
but
across.
But we will probably just step straight across to that. Oh yeah, like a Teddy Ruxpin of Alasdair that just says really good self-affirming things like, I wouldn't like what you just said about yourself, and things like that.
Burnt is an underrated movie.
No. Oh god. My favorite episode of The West Wing is
My favorite episode of The West Wing is Celestial Navigation.
Great. Okay, so now we have to design the Alasdair Teddy Ruxpin monstrosity that will turn into a horror movie. I'll put that on the to-do list.
Kind of shocked it isn't already there. Not gonna lie.
I know. Pardon me, everybody. It's getting late. And then that's everything. That's just the usuals.
It's just the usual gubbins, isn't it?
And we'll have to come up with some more shenanigans for next week as well. I'm starting to save really good dad jokes that I find on Twitter and TikTok and Tumblr. So maybe we'll just have Alasdair do a bunch of dad jokes one of these days. That'll be fun.
That could work. I could make that work.
That could work. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Have a lovely evening.
Also, Kiwi, I saw what you're going through at the moment earlier, and you're doing great.
Take time.
Yeah.
And
be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself, exactly. Thank you very much to our wonderful moderators. And on Twitter shortly will be the stream show notes from the evening.
I really didn't need to know that Build-A-Bear allows you to record voice messages for your bears.
What?
Follow-up question. Does it allow you to record voice messages for other people's bears? I just have images now of like someone acquiring Thor Bear, pressing it, and it's me as Werner Herzog going, "The universe's arc bends towards entropy. The lightning is the sound of the gods' tears. Happy birthday, loser."
Oh crap! I have a mighty need.
There's a Build-A-Bear like 2.
You can do it online now. You can order them online, and they'll send them to you. They had to set it up because of COVID.
Oh my god.
And you know that there are like Animal Crossing ones now too.
And also the 10th Doctor.
So he had high tops and
yes, and the 3D glasses.
Oh, poopy.
You might actually get an actual Alasdair plushie to go with your actual Alasdair plushie.
This is a very dangerous thing for me to learn.
Win a Herzog.
You can buy recordable voice boxes on their own more cheaply. But can you have the ones with the string? That's the important part. You have to be able to pull the string.
It is entirely possible that we could get a Build-A-Bear where you press its stomach and we yell, "Death comes for Dustin!"
You could record messages and send them to go in people's stuffed toys. Hey, Mick, if you're in the chat, you might want to go add a new pledge level to the St. Kilda Kickstarter.
Yes.
We'll have people record horrible messages for you to put on your voicemails or stuffed
Mick,
animals.
You know that scene that Erica did? That one? Yeah.
Oh boy.
Dustin.
Death comes
for Dustin.
People are like, okay, I'm signing up for that level. Oh, great. Okay, we're going to have to get you a lot of that vocal tea.
That we still have a ton of it. From,
okay, good. We'll be fine.
From that time Glasgow failed to kill me. Suck it, Celtic Chicago. Glasgow's like Chicago, but Scottish, yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. We love you.
We're not going there. We're not going there at all. We will see you on Sunday for those of you who join us, and if not, we'll see you here next week for more Scarlet Hollow.
Yes, indeed.
Bye.